All right. So the chapter that um, we're going over tonight is really the last section of the paper. And this section is called the discussion section. It's also kind of the summary of the whole paper. So you could call it discussion or summary. Um, but really, it would be different if you ran the study because, the discussion is really where do you want to go with this? What do you want to do with it? Did you think it was worthwhile? Did you think it was effective? Um, so it's a little different for articles or chapters that actually ran a study. So let's talk first about what your summary and or discussion would look like for your final paper. And, this is not going to be long. I would say, you know, one long paragraph, basically, half a page, something like that, because you didn't actually run the study. But you're going to look at it a little differently. You're going to talk about the possibilities of everything you put together for this model. So once again, think about it as if you're applying to a grant. How would you sell your model to a grant committee? Because I mean, technically you could do this, or maybe you're applying to a conference to present your model or something like that. How would you convince them that this is a worthwhile model and treatment program to share or to further study, you know? So you're going to talk about kind of the next steps and why you think this would be an effective model. So you're going to summarize all of the positive things you put together. You're going to talk about what future plans would look like. You think, that it warrants further study and, maybe running a study. And you've talked about what that proposed study would look like in your paper. And, um, I think that as you summarize your model and your research and the proposed study, think about it as kind of like an elevator sell, when you're trying to sell something and you only have a short amount of time to do it. And so that's kind of what this is. It's not this paper has reviewed, blah, blah. Don't make it boring, you know? Make it exciting. Like you think this could really help this population for the following reasons. It's something that really hasn't been done before, or like at least the combination of these treatments hasn't been used or studied before. So, you want to talk about how it's a new comprehensive model. Um, Talk about how each one was successful in its own right, and the combination of them should be even more successful in treatment. Talk about how these individuals need this, how there may be some treatments out there, but obviously they're not meeting this population's needs. So, you want a chance to better meet the needs of the population. So that's kind of like your summary or uh, discussion section. Um, in if you had run the study, so if you're reading an articles discussion section, you're really going to they're going to try to sell you how was it a successful study. Their focus is going to be more on the study, which is fine. And so this chapter is only like 5 pages long, but it does give you some guidelines for evaluating the discussion section. And the first one is, do the researchers clearly restate the purpose or research hypothesis or questions? And so yours would be a purpose. You want to better meet the needs of treating a population. And you did address basic questions in your lit review. Do the researchers clearly discuss the implications of findings and how they relate to theories, others' findings, and actual practice? So this is a combination of basically what you found in your lit review that worked, why you incorporated them in your model, and why you think your more comprehensive model would work better. If relevant, do the researchers provide alternative explanations of the results obtained when there's a discrepancy with other sources or expected outcomes? So if you did run the study and the results were different than other people, how would you explain that? And is it a valid way of explaining it? Do the researchers identify potential limitations of the study and the results? So there's not going to be a lot of limitations in your proposed study. You can read the ones in Kayla's paper that I shared with you. There are some general ones, like there's a lot of variables that you're not considering, in your study. You can't basically identify every variable and address it. So one of the limitations is, you're going to start with a smaller sample size, a smaller region. You're going to, most of your measurements will probably be self-reported. So, you have to rely on the client's honesty in their self-report. So those are the two primary limitations for everybody. Do the researchers identify possible directions for future research? That's your proposed study. That's your direction for future research. Those are kind of the general questions for anybody to address in the discussion part. They do have some examples in the book for both quantitative and qualitative. So, and they even use kind of an example of a PTSD study. I think that, I think that it's a little different if you're writing about a study that's been done versus a model and a proposed study. If you look at my articles that I included, or I don't think I did a study for either the chapter or the article. So I did a study for the dissertation sample that I included, but not the others. So you will see a difference in those discussions. There's a place for reflections. It's okay to give your own opinion and thoughts. Like maybe you ended up in a different place than you started. Maybe you started thinking one way and then you did all of this research and you ended up thinking differently about the subject. Share that with the reader. That's okay. That's part of gaining understanding. It's okay to change your perspective as you do the research. So, like an example would be what I did not anticipate was, maybe you discovered something. Maybe something surprised you. Let's see. I think the only other thing it would be if if maybe you wanted to include something, but you couldn't find any research on it in the lit review. Maybe nothing was done. So, it almost feels like, okay, well, I want to include this. I don't have any research on it because it's never been done before. So you're taking a bit of a chance, but it's also original. So I would actually use that word that this is kind of an original application of whatever you want to use that hasn't been used before. So that's honestly the last part of your paper. And once we go through your models and acronyms and kind of the timeline of treatment, I think that's pretty much your paper.